Hey guys, tonight we whisper into the past, navigating the soggy cobbles of Georgian London. And you probably won't survive this unbeaten by spectacular heroism, but you might drift off richer in oddities. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments so I know who's snoozing beside me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge along a narrow, winding lane in Georgian-era London. The air is thick with moisture and manure, the faint squeak of a horse-drawn wagon echoes. Your silk-hemmed shoes glint faintly in the dim lantern light, but that glint is outweighed by the misery of ankle-deep sludge. You set your heel on something firm, and it's not paved stone. It's frozen in place with a milted dribble of unknown origin. A waft of stale urine, horse dung, maybe slaughterhouse runoff, but definitely the smell of a city bursting at its seams. The elite hang powdered wigs and ruffs over polished doors, but outside those doors, the streets resemble brown rivers sludging around ornate entrances. In the booming metropolis of the 18th century, London's population surged, while infrastructure limped behind. You start in the slick of familiar cobbles, but as you glance sideways at an elite carriage passing you, you realize refinement and filth were married in a very unromantic alignment. The image of a powdered lady stepping delicately through a muck-filled alley isn't a caricature. It was daily reality. The aristocrat might wear patent leather shoes and fine gloves, but her doorstep opened into a world where cesspits bubbled just beneath the floorboards. Historians still argue whether this juxtaposition of elegance and excrement was a symbol of aspiration or simply pragmatic blindness. The streets themselves were a morass. Road surfaces were uneven, mud gathered in hollows, drainage was minimal. Rainwater, domestic waste, animal droppings, slaughterhouse fluids, they all converged. You feel the squish of the muck between your toes. Well, you're being imagined barefoot for effect, or rather between your elegant shoes and the coated grime. The smell is rich, layered, something like rotten oats, urine, manure, mixed with the perfume of wigs and pomade trying to override it. You force a polite cough. The carriage glides past, horse hooves clinking, wheels spinning, the driver tip-tapping his whip against the seat, oblivious to the slurry you're navigating. Remarkably, the wealthy in Georgian London often viewed this slurry as a given, a backdrop to their social comings and goings. Mansions with grand facades appeared in newly built squares, but if you peeked behind the curtains, you'd find privies and cesspits lurking. Indeed, large houses were hardly more hygienic than small ones. Inside, the mere presence of waste pits under grand floors was common. In this city of contrast, fashion and filth walked side by side. You steady yourself on a raised lantern post and think, why weren't things better? Well, infrastructure was lagging. Historic roads, old houses, overburdened systems, the sheer volume of refuse outstripped what the city could manage. One fringe tidbit: it was not unusual that for extremely rainy nights, whole streets became rivers of slurry, and one account claims a drunken barber fell into the Fleet Ditch, a polluted subterranean stream, and died frozen upright in the mud. Grim, yes, but unforgettable. And remember, you in your silk shoes, them in their horse-drawn carriage, still, both of you, just as vulnerable to the underfoot chaos of Georgian London. The lavish doors, the wigs, the powdered faces, they're all theatrical glamour, overlaying a basic problem. The city's waste had nowhere to go. Rainwater washed human, animal, and household waste into ditches or the Thames tributaries. Gutters were open, cesspits overflowed. Even the wealthy's home sat atop unsealed or unsanitary pits. Historians still argue whether the elites perceived this as a crisis of morality or simply accepted it as part of the urban fabric. You pause at a corner near a butcher's and observe the steamy fog from the nearby slaughterhouse mixing with the fog of the early evening. A cart releases a squeal of pig being forced by its legs into narrow alley. The muck at the wheel track forms a crust of dung, mud, and something fouler. Beneath the fashionable shoes of passing ladies and gents, there is no magic. They tiptoe or shimmy as best they can. Some streets had raised pavements of brick or stone, but you chuckle softly, in your cozy chair now, because even those raised pavements led to stairs or boards over the muck. Luxury was literally built on top of filth. In the midst of this, you spot an 18th century gentleman straightening his powdered wig, his coattails fluttering. He sets foot precisely onto the raised curb, lifting his patent leather shoe. He glances down at you, yes, you, with an amused half-smile. He might be thinking, the plebeian struggles. You might hate his smug face, but you must admit, he's right. You are stepping in the muck. And now, contemplate the social symbolism. Those shoes, those wigs, they broadcast status. But they also broadcast something else, disconnection from the ground problem. Being fashionable meant you're above the muck, even if you weren't literally above it. That show of elevation in culture mirrored the physical elevation of the curb. It might seem superficial, but it mattered. In conversations of the time, clothes were not just about style, they were about surviving the street. Some folks considered a shoe unsoiled from street muck a sign of moral virtue. The notion sounds absurd now, but so did many of their ideas. Historians still argue whether these fashion choices were purely symbolic or a part of a genuine attempt to manage the urban mess. As you consider all this, your silk-gloved fingers unconsciously grip the lantern. The reflection of the street in your shoes blur. The lights dim in your imagination. We drift forward to the next moment, ready to track how all this manure and mud turned into commerce, then into reform. But for now, you've stepped into the mire, reminded that elegance often stood on unstable and muddy ground. You step gingerly through the muck, your boots sinking slightly with each step. The streets of Georgian London are a treacherous mix of mud and manure, yet your footwear demands attention. High heels, once a symbol of French aristocracy, have been adopted by both men and women in Britain. These heels, which often made of silk or damask and adorned with embroidery or buckles, were not just for walking, they were a statement of status and fashion. The concave heel, popular between 1714 and 1830, was a mark of distinction, indicating the wearer's prominence in society. Such footwear was impractical for the muddy streets, yet they were worn with pride, elevating the wearer both literally and socially. As you navigate the slippery streets, you notice women wearing pattens, wooden overshoes with elevated soles to protect their delicate footwear from the filth below. These pattens allowed the fashionable to maintain their appearance without sacrificing their shoes to the muck. Men, on the other hand, often wore sturdier boots, reflecting their roles in public and outdoor activities. These boots were symbols of masculinity and practicality, contrasting with the delicate nature of women's footwear. The choice of footwear was a clear indicator of one's social standing and gender roles in Georgian society. Historians still debate whether the emphasis on footwear in Georgian fashion was a reflection of genuine status or a societal obsession with appearances. Regardless, the streets of London were a catwalk of social signaling, where every step was a testament to one's place in the complex hierarchy of the time. You step gingerly onto the cobblestones, your boots sinking slightly into the damp, uneven surface. The air is thick with the mingling scents of horse sweat, tobacco smoke, and the occasional waft of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. The streets of Georgian London are a maze of activity, and every step you take is a dance with danger.